Well, welcome everybody to another episode of 100 Yards of Football, along with the host, Vincent Turner. And I'm Harper LeBel, and today we've got ourselves a very special show. At least for me, it's going to be great. A man that I have worked with for over 15 years. I think if you work with somebody over 17 or 18 years, you become family. So I'm getting really close to that. But I first met Sam Crenshaw many, many years ago when I was in a Falcon locker room, and he very politely said, "Hey man, could you move out of the way so that I can interview Dion and get a real good tight shot of him? You're in the there's Andre. Can you go dress somewhere else?" That's where we met. At least that's how I remember it. I don't know if my memory serves me well, but we want to have a special introduction, and it goes a little bit like this.
Today, on 100 Yards of Football, the former Atlanta Falcon and NFL veteran Harper LeBel joins Vincent Turner to co-host for an outstanding guest today. Presenting, he's a broadcast veteran with over 30 years of experience, showing his diversity in radio and television. He's also a producer, correspondent for the City of Atlanta TV, ATL 26. He's a broadcaster and content producer for GPB Sports, and he currently serves as a sideline reporter for the Georgia State University Panther Football Radio Network, and is the play-by-play voice for Georgia State basketball on ESPN3. And he's most notably known for his time at WXIA-TV from 1998 to 2014, winning the 2003 Emmy Award for the Best Sports Performer. And he currently hosts USTA Southern's Talking Tennis Southern Style podcast. And he's received the USTA's Media Excellence Award and serves on the board of USTA Georgia. If that isn't impressive enough, he's also been a sideline reporter for the Atlanta Falcons radio and the play-by-play voice for the Celebration Bowl Radio Network. He's a graduate of the University of West Georgia and was an announcer for WSB-FM during his college years. Here to give us his analysis and representing Omega Sci-Fi fraternity, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to 100 Yards of Football, Sam Crenshaw.
How about that? All right, sports fans. Welcome, Sam Crenshaw. Hey, an introduction like that, Sam, are you ready to go through the tunnel? Are you ready to jump up and race out there on the midfield and just start jumping around?
Let's go.
Well,
and we play for the South Georgia Catfish. We're not supposed to mention where that comes from yet. We have to wait till Monday before let people know exactly what that is.
Yeah, don't give away the secret sauce, Sam. You can't do that.
Well, all right.
Sam, you grew up in Birmingham, Alabama. When was it that Mr. and Mrs. Crenshaw realized that their young Samuel, their son, had just an affinity and a passion for sports?
My mom, the school teacher, figured it out early, right? Because, teachers, they're trying to figure out stuff to get you to learn. And let's see. Reach behind me here.
There's a blinding light there. Now it's gone. I love it.
Boom, that's Bo Jackson. But I just got that just not because of Bo Jackson, but and this is actually Dominique Wilkins in a Celtics uniform. We should burn this. But it's what kind of got me started, this fascination with them. And she found out I was doing more than looking at the uniforms and what I was turning them over, and I was, if I need to know a new word, mom, dad, what's the, and I was, so she found that I was using them to learn words, and I was using them to learn, and teachers, anything to get you to learn, right? They trick us into doing it and whatnot, and so she was real good at doing that, and she let me have all I wanted. My dad would get disturbed because I would have them scattered out all over the floor, but she didn't care because, she felt like I was doing something learning. Sports Illustrated started coming to the house at a very early age. And then you got this SI for kids. Do they still print that? They stopped printing it, didn't they?
Not sure. I've seen a few of them, but I haven't seen them lately. So I think you probably have to go online if you want to continue that type of stuff.
But I mean, I started getting she knew that's what I was going to read. That's what she made sure I got a lot. So I have to give her credit in that way, and my dad credit in whenever there was something to go and see sports wise. If he had the time and could get a ticket, we went. That's something, playing is great and what I was doing as well, but getting a chance to see it and touch it was special. Seeing the game this past summer, with the tribute to Willie Mays and the game that the Giants and Cardinals played, and hearing Reggie Jackson, because I remember going to see Reggie Jackson play. The age during those years, all those teams that won the 3 straight World Series, all those guys came through Birmingham. Raleigh Fingers, Blue Moon Odom, Vida Blue, Catfish Hunter, Joe Rudy, Sal Bando. They all came through Gene Tennis. We saw all those guys on their way up to being this dynasty team that, if not for the advent of free agency, probably could have won 5 or 6 World Series, right? Finley wasn't going to play for free agency, so they split up and they went and won World Series other places.
Yeah.
But to be there and see there and touch that was just special. So I have to give both of my folks credit for seeing something there and giving me some encouragement.
I'm not sure if I can speak for all the gray hairs, but baseball cards for me taught me math a little bit. I learned how to figure out an ERA or what somebody's batting average was. Now I couldn't break it down to he's hitting 227, but I sure knew what 1 for 4 was and 1 for 3. Is that also something that Mrs. Crenshaw, your mom, had a great affinity for you and just, okay, I'll let him get another pack of baseball cards and get that little stick of gum that,
I gave it away. Always gave it away. I never chewed that stuff.
You can't keep that gum.
That stuff was hard as a brick, man. I always gave it away. I didn't keep
you
that
get
stuff.
a chip of tooth, and the flavor only lasted three chews.
Yeah, I'm like, I gave it away when my buddies and friends wanted them, whatnot. You know what? To tell you how bad it was, the kids in my neighborhood, which was the hood, which is Collegeville, which is the north part of town, and they would use me to settle arguments. And their nickname, a couple of guys' nickname, hey, Howard Cosell, come here. Yeah, hey, Howard Cosell, come here. No. Now, who hit the most home runs last year? I mean, that's what kids in the neighborhood would say.
You were the judge. You were did your word, did it have some weight with it? If you passed?
Yeah, but because they didn't know who it was. They just wanted somebody to settle their argument, right?
You're the only one that could remember all that stuff. Wow.
Oh, gosh.
Well, growing up in Birmingham like you did, and you mentioned Legion Field right before we went on the air, that had to be a tremendous place to be able to see college football. Was your first experience of seeing a game that you go, this is something special? Was it at Legion Field?
Well, yeah, that was the biggest place around. That was the biggest place in the state. And, we hadn't quite gotten pro football here, and baseball hadn't come to Atlanta yet. That was 66. So, yeah, going to Legion Field to see HBCUs play because they had not integrated the programs at Alabama and Auburn, and they would come and play their big games in Birmingham. They would play their smaller games on campus. When they play like Southern Miss or, Tennessee Chattanooga, they played them on campus. But their big conference games, they always came to the big city because that's where the alums were. You graduate Auburn and Tuscaloosa, you can't wait to get to Birmingham. That's the biggest, mail post office or whatever. You weren't going to stay in Tuscaloosa until years later they decided, you know what? If we play these games on campus, those alums will come back and bring us their checks and pay more money to sit in the box. And thank you, Pat Dye. Decided that Auburn would not come to Birmingham, and that started, the games being played on campus. But yeah, I would go to games there, and high school games would be played there. And it's just this, for a high school game to play, there was this big cavernous place with 74,000 seats. But just a symbolic place. My dad got to go there for a college game, an Alabama game before most folks. He was in the second wave of the first black bus drivers in the city. And on Saturdays, because there are no hotels around Legion Field, so when people came to town for the games, they stayed in downtown or some other part of downtown. They had to get shuttles. They had to get shuttled over to the stadium for the games. And so the city buses would shuttle the people over. And at the end of the first quarter, the buses would park. They would go inside and get to watch the game. And so he and this row of men in their white shirts and their black pants and their black ties are sitting there watching this football game. And the only other black folks around there selling Coke or sweeping or something. And then at the end of the third quarter, they cranked the buses up because people would start wanting to go back to the hotels. But they were in the games, pre Wilbur Jackson and pre James Owens, who was the first black player at Auburn. They were in the building.
And did you ever get to attend along with him, or did you go with him?
He's working. No, I mean, I go ride with him a little bit, but Saturdays those buses were going to be so packed, with fans and whatnot. So I wasn't trying to tag along with him on those days.
Just out of curiosity, how far is the trip from the hotels? What, maybe 5 minutes, if that, from the hotel to the stadium?
The hotels? No, from driving on the street, it'd be about 15 to about a 20-minute drive for some of them. I mean, they're over in downtown, and the stadium's a little ways off. The stadium's in a community over near Birmingham Southern College, which is now defunct. I don't know what they're going to do with that campus. There was a story earlier this year that baseball team was in a Division III World Series, and it wouldn't stop losing. And they were still playing after the school was closed down. They were still playing in the College World Series. Great story. My cousin went to school there.
You're the fault team because you don't have a school that you're representing.
You don't have to go right. You don't have a school to go back to, right? And they were still playing.
Nobody could beat you.
But the guys didn't want. The guys didn't want to lose. They didn't want. And even when they finally did lose in the championship game, instead of flying back, they took a bus back. They just wanted to spend more time, more time together before they came back in.
Wow.
Some of those guys made a transfer portal. Do they have a D3 transfer portal? I don't know.
We'll make one up if we need to. We'll do that.
Yeah, those guys deserve it.
That's another book that you've got to write. You and I both know off air, we've talked about you and some of the books that you're going to put together. Go into your high school days. I know Vincent has a few questions, but let me start with what was it about high school where you kind of connected the dots between, or if you did, between broadcasting, talking about games, or at least being able to know enough about them and playing and being a part of a high school program?
Being part of high school, in Birmingham was pretty tough. I mean, the team wasn't that great, and the coaches, did the best that they could in the circumstances. There wasn't a feeder program, so there wasn't Little League. Your first organized in those days, your first organized ball was in high school. And so you go out there in the ninth grade. I was out there in the ninth grade, and you basically got your butt beat, by the varsity guys. And I didn't really get to play when we moved over to Atlanta. We moved to a new neighborhood and wasn't really known there. But I did play some over in Birmingham. And so still, even then, just following it, I would start recording games that with a cassette recorder, just games that would be on TV, and just listen to them, not knowing that I'm aiming it for anything. It's just something just for enjoyment, something that I just thought was cool to do.
Did you matriculate down the field, Sam? Did you do any matriculation?
Matriculating.
Or Howard Cosell's famous word with Ali, you're being quite truculent.
Truculent. No, there was no matriculating or being truculent at all. You just try to survive out there. But the main thing was still finding a way to tunnel. Even subconsciously, I wasn't thinking about anything as far as working, and it was something that I thought was just a fun thing to do. I did have a fascination with radio. I thought it was cool to be the voice in the box, and I thought that was a cool thing. Somebody, I guess because I saw some people that worked on radio in Birmingham, and they didn't look like I thought they sounded. And I said, that's pretty fascinating. You hear this voice and they sound a certain, and then you see them like, I remember that we would see like my grandmother loved listening to this gospel radio show. And so we were at somewhere to eat or something, and the host was there, and my mom pointed him out to me and says, "That's him." You hear this voice, right? And then you see the person, and you're like, "Really?" And so that's my first impression. But not knowing you're going to try to do something like that and work in it. Moving to Atlanta was as it is for, I'm sure, a lot of people. You see things and you see people doing things that you can identify with, and then the light bulb goes on. Maybe, maybe. And that's kind of what the move from Birmingham to Atlanta meant for me. Um, we moved the day after Hank Aaron hit 715. My goodness, that makes it 50 years ago this summer. And I remember my dad was getting transferred. He was working for Eastern Airlines at the time, and he was getting transferred to Hartsfield Jackson, which had the old terminal on Virginia Avenue before they built the new place. And we had everything all boxed up and loaded on the truck. The last thing left was the television set because we knew the game was coming on TV, and we followed the Braves. We had been over the Braves games before. And so I'm pretty excited, right? When we move to Atlanta, we get to go see Braves games. Maybe not all the time, but a lot more often. And so Hank Aaron hits this home run. And the next day we move and we get the truck unloaded at the house in East Point. And 2 nights later, we were at Atlanta Stadium with about 6,000 of our closest friends to see him hit 716. That was the Braves back then. They weren't the greatest, and everybody had shown up for the big home run, so it was kind of back to what time's the game starting, what time can you get here? But it was cool being in town and having these things that you suppose you want to go see a Falcons game, you want to go and see a Braves game, go see a Hawks game. So this really kind of fueled my interest in it, and the move had that kind of impact on me.
Vincent, go ahead.
Mr. Crenshaw, we appreciate you being on the show today and you being a big college football fan. I want to ask you, because you was right there in the midst of everything. September 21st, 1970. How much was that impact of USC playing Alabama, with a lot of people saying changed college football in the South, and that USC team coming in and pounding Alabama 42-21, and them Trojans coming in with Sam the Bam Cunningham, Jimmy Jones, Clarence Davis, Charles Young. Talk about
okay
right there.
The rumor is, the word is, I don't know about it to substantiate it, but the crowds that went to Alabama, the Alabama fans had never seen that many black players. Obviously, nobody else could come into play at Legion Field. And the rumor I heard, there was word that was said that somebody in the stand says, "Man, we playing Grambling tonight," because that's what it had never seen that before at Legion Field, and
right? Nothing.
It shook things up quite a bit. The backstories that have come out of that years from now, and Harper, you're familiar with, if you ever spend some time with Rich McKay, he needs to write the book, because his father and Coach Bryant were dear friends, and you would think those guys would have nothing in common, right? One's from the deep South, with people's drawing lines saying you will not have these type players, you will not do this at this school, you're gonna have to win with these guys, you cannot, whereas Southern Cal is, McKay was out there playing with everybody. Whoever wants to come out, he could bring whoever he wanted to bring to play. Yet they had this incredible relationship, and this game was part of it. And maybe that part of the story is not told enough. So much of it is told about the fact that this team with these outstanding black players. And here's the thing. Bryant knew that in order to make it real, it had to happen there. Because if you go back and check Alabama's record book, they had a 7-year winless streak in bowl games. For 7 years, Alabama, they had a tie and 6 losses in consecutive years in bowl games. And these were teams with black players. They were losing to a lot of the Big 8 schools. They were always playing into Nebraska, or Oklahoma, or Colorado, or Missouri. And then, Notre Dame, they had a tie with Oklahoma with Greg Pruitt, if I'm not mistaken, the Blue Bonnet Bowl in the Astrodome. And then they had ties. But a lot of people don't point that part of it out, that they were going to bowl games and lost. But because it didn't happen at home, it didn't happen in front of their fans, it's like they were off somewhere and it wasn't real. And Southern Cal made it real. And, we brought the change. And it had already started to change some at some schools like Tennessee and Kentucky. It already had some black players. But when that happened, some people who Bryant was this vilified figure in the black community because he would always say, you know, no one's qualified. No one's qualified is what I would always hear as a kid. And later I found I've become a lot more, I won't say a lot more, but a bit more sympathetic because, you know, everybody's got somebody to answer to, even him. As big as he was in that state, there were some folks writing checks, right? You know, and we all know, those of us who follow college football today know the power of the folks who write the checks. You know, somebody's saying, I ain't writing a check if you do a certain thing, certain things won't happen. And so he had to contend with that. And so it's made me a bit more sympathetic to his cause and that he really did want to give some people an opportunity, but wasn't allowed to until that night, until they saw that game. And so as imagine, but you talk about Southern Cal. There was somebody from Southern Cal that was in town the summer before. You see, Legion Field is supposed to be the football capital of the South. But the greatest, but the top college player 2 years before came to play there. Jets were supposed to play the Bills an exhibition game. And people wanted to be this big return of Joe Namath. Joe Namath was coming back to Alabama. He's going to play at Legion Field. No, he wasn't, because he was involved with some folks, and Pete Rozelle said, you're going to play football or you're going to play with your little gangster friends. And Joe temporarily retired. And so during that time, camp started. He wasn't there, but they had already scheduled this game to be played in Birmingham. And they were playing against the Buffalo Bills with O.J. Simpson.
O.J., yep.
Wearing number 36. My
Really?
dad got enough money. We got some tickets, and we off to Legion Field we went. It was a celebration because in a city where they hadn't seen fit to have black players, here is the number one college player coming to play. Oh man, it was a huge deal. It was a huge deal to have him come and play. And he was just running back kicks. I mean, he was a rookie. He had just gotten there. So he wasn't the O.J. Simpson that we had seen at Southern Cal or the guy that he became in Buffalo. He was just getting started. And I remember he took a punt and he ran toward the sideline and some dude hit him and he went over a folding chair. but that was my memory of seeing O.J. Simpson play in Birmingham. But it was a deal. You know, it was a big deal.
What would have happened if Alabama won that football game, in your opinion? They said they would have beat USC. What would it still?
Until they played another team that would have beaten them, it probably would have stayed. Probably would have stayed the same. The thing of it is, with the rest of the conference catch up with them, and that's the other thing that came so close. There was this guy named Holloway that played up at Tennessee, and every time Alabama played him, people held their breath because he was from Huntsville, and Bryant tried to recruit him, but told him he wasn't going to get to play quarterback. Mm-hmm. And so he never beat Alabama. He never beat Alabama. But if his Tennessee team had beaten Alabama, man, you know, I don't know what that would have done. Not just him being a black quarterback playing for Tennessee, but that he was from Alabama. That was the other part that made people just hold their breath every time they played. But you know, that was, you know, he knew he couldn't come and play the position, you know, until we got until Walter Lewis was trusted with that. And I never forget seeing that first game on ABC. They followed that guy everywhere he went, to the shower or wherever. The network cameras could not believe, here is this black quarterback at Alabama, Walter Lewis. We just followed him. I felt bad for the guy. Everybody was happy and proud to see him, but good grief, man. You know, they just followed him all over the place. And he was a good player, you know, down there. But I think Bama didn't send that many quarterbacks to the NFL. You know, when they started running the wishbone with all them tearaway jerseys and whatnot. The only guy I think they sent from the league was like Richard Todd after that. You know, the other guys were on back, your Stablers, and it was before that, the Stabler and Namath and Starr.
Bart Starr, yeah. Yeah,
you know, but the Rutledge brothers and all those guys that were quarterbacks, they wouldn't go into the league. I mean, and everybody wanted, Bear Bryant was kind of like Dean Smith. He said, who can keep Michael Jordan from scoring 30 points a game? Who can keep somebody from running from 100 yards a game? It was Bryant. You know, he had a stable. That's why he never had a Heisman Trophy winner. You know, you weren't going to get above him. You know, people bought the tickets to come and see him too, right?
Yes, sir. I know you cover a lot in your history with Georgia high school football, so I'm gonna start here. Some of the great coaches, and I want you to give your opinion. Larry Campbell, Ron Gottrell, and Nick
Ooh,
Hyder.
wow,
I mean, all three of those gentlemen.
man, that's a stout list right there. Now, my goodness, we'll start with Campbell because I had so much dealings with him in my days in Augusta. Um, Such a dominant program and an incredible community in Lincolnton. And people think of Garrison Hurst when they think of there. And remember covering his games. He was a man among boys. He's just incredible to watch that guy play on Friday nights. Um, but just the pride of that community. And each team came in, didn't want to let down what the other one had done before. And just tremendous what Coach was able to do. And when he won a state championship, some kind of way you ought to get a new pickup truck. You know, the coach, you win another championship. Sam got a new pickup truck to drive the grandbabies around in. That's your coach. Congratulations. Yeah.
At least with a new set of tires. You got at least
Right. So that was great. It's great what Hyder did, obviously, in Valdosta was remarkable. The record kind of speaks, volumes about the players that have come out of there. But just what those teams were able to do. Once again, you're talking about a community. And the pride of a community. And Friday nights is nothing. Matter of fact, until just recently, they may still. Everybody else in the state kicks off at 7:30. They kick off at 8. Down in that we kick off when we want to kick. We want to start. We're gonna start our games at 8. Y'all is right.
You do it our way. You do it your way where you come from.
You know what I mean? And back then, you didn't have all this teams from different parts of the states playing during the regular season. So seeing Valdosta was a big deal. That means if you're from the north end of the state, that means you're in the state championship game. You did not stumble into games with them. That like now, you have a team that may up in this part of the state that may kick off this season, against them. I think last week, I forget who played them, but you had a number of schools from the Atlanta area that were going down there to play. And so you're going to drive down there. You're going to kick off at 8 o'clock later. And then you got this long drive back after they beat you about 50-12, and so it's not
3 in the morning, aren't you, Sam?
Right.
Yeah.
You do. But you get to say that you lived that experience, to go to this place that has won more state championships than anywhere else, national championships, and just a revered high school program. And Coach Hyder was a big part of that. And then you talk about Coach Gartrell and what he was able to do, launching the program at Stevenson after coming over from Shamrock when Shamrock closed, where one of his prized pupils there is a future Pro Football Hall of Famer, I would believe, in Jeff Saturday. And so he goes to Stevenson, and my goodness, the players they crank out, they go to the National Football League. They were there on the east side of town to what Westlake is on the west side of town. Right. They're both programs that just cranked out these guys who've gone on to play at the next level. And Coach Gartrell was such an instrumental part in that, and laid just a great foundation for a brand new program. And that's tough to do in DeKalb because you got Tucker right down one way, and you had Southwest DeKalb on the other side of I-20 that they opened. And when the MLK opened up down the road from Southwest DeKalb, they got off to a tremendous start as a new program. And all through the whole thing, Gartrell's cranking out guys and continue to win ball games over there. So he's one of those gentlemen just doing a tremendous job.
And then talk about Laney High School in Augusta, Georgia. You kind of told me the real name of the school, but talk about them. And the reason I picked this high school is because I was looking the other day and I said, man, their alumni is pretty impressive. Chip Banks.
Yeah.
Kentrell Bell.
Yeah.
Emerson Boozer.
Whose jersey they still got in the locker when you walk through the in that locker. He's got his jersey in the trophy case when you walk in there. Absolutely.
And then one man that's starting right now for the Kansas City Chiefs that went to Washington State, Jalen Watson. I didn't know he was out of high school. So talk about that high school and your time there.
My goodness, just when you get there, people tell you about the pride in that community and what it has meant. David Dupree was a legendary coach there for many, many years, football and track. And pre-integration, they won a lot of state championships. When I moved to Augusta, he was coaching track at Payne College. He was still coaching track at the time, but just the reverence that people had for him and the support for that school. They're great with basketball, and if they go to play and make them state championship, they're gonna pack the place out. There'll be nobody left in Augusta. And that's the thing when that school, rallies and has great teams with great players. And Otis Smart has been like the girls basketball coach for many. He's still there. And so that's the thing the impression that was made on me from the time that I came to work and live in Augusta. That just some tremendous people that come through there, athletes, but just tremendous people who contributed to the community and the history of that area. It was great. That whole area, that Laney Walker corridor, Tabernacle Baptist Church, and all the things that are down there, and then the famous door. I never went to see what was made the door so famous, but there was places along the street that were just these legendary places, man, that people knew of there in Augusta.
Well, I turn it back over to Harper, Washington County, the Edwards brothers and Tequio Spikes. What was like covering them in high school?
The house of pain. They would come down. They would come down to Augusta and just when are these guys leaving? And that would be football or basketball. They've had tremendous athletes come out of that program, and a number of communities around that area. You think Burke County, you think Thompson, but Waco is a little bit farther away. But when they would come down to it, because I remember one year Richmond Academy had a really good basketball team, and they were really good. And they played Washington County, came in, and it wasn't even a game. I was like, man, they came in and just took over the place. But so the pride, you talk about the Edwards brothers and the pride they have in that community, tremendous, man. And the guys would come down there from Waco, and when they would come into town, you knew somebody was in trouble. That's just what they had all the time.
Harper?
We're with Sam Crenshaw. Vincent and we're sandwiching Sam in here on the screen, going over the good old days. And I guess one of the cool things that I've noticed about you and your Friday night show on 92.9 The Game, you and Coach, you get to go back with some of these guys. And what's it like for you when you get to call a Terrell Owens or some of these other guys and say, hey, would you come on the air and talk about your high school days? Your first answer to me when you mentioned this to me was, these guys can't wait because they have all these wonderful memories and they want to share them. I think it's just a fascinating way for you to reconnect some guys that have really made it and get them back where they started and the appreciation that they have. Talk a little bit about that, will you, Sam?
It has been amazing, and man, to get it started, it was. I thought about something that because we have such a collection of folks, from my area who've played the game at its highest level, or maybe they were just great college players and didn't have a great pro career, but they all experienced Friday nights, and they're part of this tradition that we have in this state. When you think about on signing day, how many kids from Georgia sign on signing day, and then when draft comes around, the 3 days draft, you go after 3 days of the draft, you look back and say, well, how many guys with ties to Georgia high school get picked? And it's 14, 15, 16, 17, 20 sometimes, some years. And so it's been here. It's part of the DNA to me of this area to have guys who excel. The thing of it was that the first show, I said, let's try for Calvin Johnson. And this was like weeks after he had gotten his gold jacket. And this is a guy who just got in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And he said, sure. And I was like, wow. And I said, everybody at 92.9 thought it was great. I said, okay, now where do I go from here?
How do you beat that?
How do you start at the top? Where can I go after that, right? But it was it was great talking to him, and just talked about high school. He talked about Friday nights, and he went to school on the South Side, and he talked about he went to Sandy Creek, and he didn't win a state championship at Sandy Creek. That started after he left. Now Sandy Creek became this dominant program out of the south side of town, down in Fayette County. But they were playing against Woodward Academy, and Westlake. My sister went to Westlake, and so I knew Pac-Man Jones and all. He knew. And so I mean, we just started talking about guys around the side of town that he knew or had seen, and it was just tremendous conversation. But it has been great, and I've appreciated and people who carved out time to be a part of it over the last 3 years we've been doing the show. I mean, everybody from Jeff Francoeur to Keith Brooking. One night we had George Rogers and Cam Newton on the same show. It's two Heisman Trophy winners, right? And we just talked about high school. We didn't ask about Cam, nothing about his new hairdo and that stuff he's doing. But the thing of it is, like you said, Harper, the further away from that you get, people don't ask you about those times. People want to hear about college, and they want to hear about your pro, and nobody asks them about high school. And they got this backlog of stories, and once they get going, it's hard to turn. Like Brooklyn, man, I said, Keith, we gotta go. Well, I just want to tell you one more thing about little old East Coweta. I said, Keith, East Coweta ain't little old no more. You can't get off the freeway down there after 5 o'clock. You know, the folk live in Sharpsburg these days. But for him, it was a little small place. When he played there, and his mind is always little old, we just little old East Coweta. No, y'all ain't little old East Coweta no more, man. But it has been great to have them do it. And then those like Francoeur or Marquise Grissom or George Lombard, who all chose baseball as their professional sport, but never lost their love for Friday nights. And so it's been great to have that. I mean, Marquise Grissom, who, by the way, was just elected to the Georgia Sports Hall of Fame. So congrats to him.
Awesome.
Yeah. And so he was a tremendous high school quarterback. And we just talked to him, and he relayed story because he went to Florida A&M to play ball. He wanted to play both, but once he got to Florida A&M, he just went straight up baseball. But he had thoughts of wanting to play football as well at Florida A&M. But he talked about a game they played. Oh man, somewhere off Lake Oconee. They were playing a school down in Oconee County. It says, man, 6 touchdowns. I threw for 3 and I ran for 3. I said, really? It's great. It's my best game, But just getting those guys to relive it and talk about it has been a joy on Friday nights. To get them to come on and share with us.
Well, the game itself, obviously, the importance you mentioned, how the state of Georgia, and here to be more specific, Atlanta, has really competed so well over the years. Top recruits can come to anywhere in the state of Georgia. And I've said you could put a blindfold on, throw a dart at a map, and hit anywhere in the state of Georgia, and you'll find a kid that could play at your school. The growth, you mentioned Coweta and how that's different, the amount of people that have moved into Georgia, and your ability to be a part of that and just to express it to the folks and say, no, this is for real now. We can compete with California. We can compete with Texas and Florida. We're actually probably a little bit better per capita than what Texas is. But the kids are bigger, better, faster, stronger, aren't they, Sam?
And the thing of it, Harper, to me, if you have a kid who's participating in a program and they're lining up against good competition, they're going to be seen. And I mean, I know today's deal is to transfer to be at whatever school is seen to be, the school to be at. But I was just talking earlier, and I reminded somebody about the story of T.J. Yates, who's now in the coaching staff with the Falcons, and how he was at Pope High School. Pope High School is not known for football. Pope is a baseball school. They play good soccer over there. I think the girls' flag football team won state championship last year. They're not known as a football school. Anyway, he's there, and he's supposed to be a basketball guy. He's committed to have a basketball scholarship to North Carolina, Greensboro. His mom goes out of town on a church mission trip, and the football coaches get Yates out there to play. He's playing quarterback, and so North Carolina comes to town because they had 2 hotshot linebackers at Woodstock. And so they come to town to play Tech, and the coaches say, hey, let's go see our guy tonight. Let's go see our guys. And so they go out to watch the guys from Woodstock, the linebackers, play, and Yates lits it up. He lit them up, man. I mean, he cooked them. And Monday, he had a scholarship offer from North Carolina. He goes there. He starts for 4 years. He goes to play in the National Football League. You don't have to do all the crazy transferring that some of these folks do. And to me, he is the greatest example of it. You know what I mean? And I just got that story from Bob Swank, he was coaching at Pope at the time. He's now up at Chambly. And he's got quite a good collection on his team. He's got Ed Reed's kid on his team. He's got Jamal Lewis' kid on his team. So keep an eye on those guys. They're both young. They're 9th and 10th graders, but keep an eye on them for next year or so.
It's a great story, Sam, but message to all of our fans: don't try this at home. Do not bamboozle mom while she's on a mission trip. She's going to go tell people about Jesus, and you're
right? You know what I mean?
Mom, I had a great Friday night. I didn't do anything. I was hanging out with the guys. The next thing you know, where did the scholarship come from?
Good scholarship. Hey, amazing. Just amazing. Just amazing. That's one of the most fascinating recruiting stories I know. And I know a lot of recruiting stories, but to me, his is one of the most fascinating of all. And that shows the power of this area, of this region. And if you're playing you're at a good school and you're competing against good competition, it wasn't that Pope was a great team, but they're in a good region. They're in a good region where they're going to play what's down the street from Walton's around the corner from them. They're going to play some good competition up the street from places like Roswell and Milton. They play Woodstock, Cherokee. They're going to play against some good competition. And if you go out and show this area is so well recruited, you're not going to be missed.
Yeah, it's almost like the Frank Sinatra song. If I can make it there, I can make it anywhere. And there's enough talent around that if you'll get seen. I went to go watch Sprayberry, and I saw a kid from Pope or East Coweta. It doesn't matter. There's so much talent out here. Sam, I want to advance just a little bit with you. Part of history is you've got Georgia Tech, Valdosta, you at West Georgia. We got to be a part of something brand new 15 years ago when Georgia State says, hey, we're going to play football. I was told on the air at a station that I was with, we'll just leave it, you can guess, Sam's still working for him, on air, why on earth is Georgia State starting a program? They're just going to get slaughtered. And I responded very quickly to go, it gives 90 more kids a chance to play at the college level. I don't care where you're from, what you do, 90 additional kids. And South Alabama, Old Dominion restarted their program. Right. UTSA, San Antonio, there were a couple of schools that were starting right around the same time, and each one of them gives 90 more kids. Talk about what it meant to you for going from the high school, which you're still a part of, but also being a part of the Georgia State family. Yeah,
it was exciting for me to get together with you and Dave and be a part of something new. I mean, yeah, there are other things you've been a part of that's been around a long time, but this was to be a part of a new tradition in downtown Atlanta. And like I said, I'd heard for years that it would never happen. It's not football at Georgia State, right. It heard it forever because it was a commuter school. Kids come in, go to the classes, and even I did that. My last quarter of school, I went to Georgia State. I got to know about 3 people. Because really, man, because all I did was come in and went to my classes and everybody was gone. I mean, but the idea of having football there, was something just such a pipe dream, and to see it, come to fruition and have the person lead it from the beginning, that gave it some validation. Well, also 2 people we give Dan Reeves some credit to, because Dan Reeves was involved with it as well in the beginning, just talking it up and being in meetings with them. So to have people like he and Bill Curry give their support to it, lend their reputation to it, to me gave it some credence and something really, really solid. And so to be a part of it, man, and be a part of the beginning of it, was incredible. And it had its growing pains. And now it's going through a new evolution. Well, everything evolves, right? Everything evolves, and so it's evolving once again. And I'm excited about that, but I'm excited about what has been achieved so far. And we're getting ready to play Georgia Tech tomorrow. And I remember, because of the long-standing rivalry between Georgia State and Georgia Southern, somebody asked when the program first began, when you're going to play Georgia Southern? And they just, that's years away, because Georgia Southern well, they're the other Six Flags over Georgia, right? They not only they play football longer, but they've been very, very good. And the idea of here's a new program coming up, and you're trying to get the right type player, kind of non-committal about what level we're gonna be at. So what kind of commitment you're gonna, you got some guys that really were kind of D2 guys that you bringing in to play at this one double A or attempt to play at what is the FCS level. And so whereas a place like South Alabama came in from the start, no, this is what we want to be. This is what we're going to be. And so it was a little different at State. So there was some growing pains, and some people required to be patient. But to me, one of the most telling things with the program is a winning record against Georgia Southern. If you had told me, that this soon in, that Georgia State would have a winning record over Georgia Southern, I would say no, because those folks have been playing longer and they've been winning longer. But no, that hadn't been the case. And, it has been a really great series, as far as football goes. What it is, like I said, it's that with them, with anything, I was telling somebody yesterday, she said, what's a good game to come to? Is Georgia State? I said, you might want to come to Georgia Southern, and whatever it is, you can play hopscotch, double dutch, jacks, marbles. It don't matter. And she looked at me and said, you remember jacks and marbles? What Georgia? Something kids can't play on their phone.
Hey, throw darts or tiddlywinks. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Those two go at it. And the interesting thing, the first year of football that Georgia Southern was in the Sun Belt, they were undefeated, right? They beat the brakes off of State in that first game at the Georgia Dome. And then next year, this little old engine that could from State goes down to Statesboro, and a guy named Penny Hart comes away with a go route, and Kyler Neal has about a 35-yard touchdown, and everything changed for State. Everything changed from there on out. They something happened that needed to happen in that game to where we can do this. You were on the sideline for that, Sam. It was an amazing experience. You can hear the student section saying some pretty ugly things to everybody there.
Yeah, well, you can always hear that when you go down to Statesboro. You always student section right behind the Georgia State bench. You hear some stuff coming out of there, man. But you expect that. The guys from the team expect that. That's all a part of it. And that's what makes that so special, and makes it so special when Georgia State goes down there and gets a win. Or in this case, we look for a win this year when they come up here.
Yeah. Well, football, obviously, from the high school level, you've covered that. Obviously, the college level in different arenas, and it's affected you. We'll talk about the Falcons in a little bit, but there's some other things that you're passionate about. When you were in North Carolina, talk a little bit about your love of NASCAR and your ability to just make left-hand turns and get to meet some of the great drivers of all time. That was probably a really unique experience for you. New when the first time it happened, but then it became, this is really cool. I like it. That's the part about it that I'm interested in. And how did you develop a relationship with NASCAR?
Oh, man. I once I decided this is what I wanted to do, just being a sports reporter, I said, well, you report what happens in this region. I didn't want to go live up north, although I tried up north for a few months in Pennsylvania or other parts of the country. This is home. And so I wanted to be
Mason-Dixon, Sam, you just want to stay
wanted to be in this part of the country, man. Wanted to be in this part of the country. And if I'm going to be in this part of the country, NASCAR is part of it. And I would say that to my friends, and they give me that look, because they're like, "What? No, man, I ain't going out there around them folks." I say, "Well, I'm there for the sport. I'm there for the competition." And the thing that really kind of won me over was before I go to work in Augusta, I'm working behind the scenes over at 5, and the Atlanta race comes up, and Bill Hartman sends me and a photographer. They give us on a chopper, and we fly down to the race, and we go up on the roof. The press tower, which was on the back side of the track. Now the press tower was on the front side, but it was on the back side. And you go up to the roof, and on the roof, because back in those days, the only race televised live was the Daytona 500. All the rest were, recorded and rolled out the next week. And so that's what was happening. They were going to produce this race, and they're going to air it on Wide World of Sports next Saturday, and that means Jim McKay was in town.
Oh boy! Wow.
This man was ESPN before ESPN,
Yes, he was.
and he did it in 2 hours on a Saturday afternoon, right? Instead of 24 hours, 7 days a week. I thought he had the coolest job on the planet. This man has the job because he goes around the world watching sports and telling folk about it. And here he is in front of me, and I get to meet him.
The thrill of victory, Sam, and the agony of defeat. That's his line, right?
And the guy working with him was Jim Lampley. You can imagine Jim McKay and Jim Lampley covered NASCAR. Good. No Benny Parsons or no Darrell Walter boogity.
Well, they were in the race probably back then.
That's true. You know what? And you're absolutely right. Man, to give ding 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 ding, because the winner of that race that day, driving as a substitute driver, was Benny Parsons.
Oh my God.
He was semi-retired, and I forget who it was that could not drive the car. They put Benny in the car that day, and he won the race. And I always reminded him when I would see him after, said, "Man, you were there." And they had his foot in a bucket of ice afterwards because his foot had gone and melt the floorboard of whatever it melted the bottom of his shoe. It was so hot. And here he is. He won the race. He won the race. And he's sitting there with his foot in a bucket of ice, man. And he was with blisters all over his feet. And I would remind him of that. We got to be really, really good friends at the track. And I knew I could always go to him, and he would shoot it straight and tell me whatever. He had ingratiated himself so to people in this region. And he's from Detroit. You know, he and his brother were cab drivers.
Oh, wow.
in Detroit, who made it down south and just ingratiated themselves to the people here. And he was just down home, folksy kind of guy, past the tater salad, you know, and people just loved him. And yeah, man, but that kind of, to hear the engines, feel the ground shake. And in those years, there was a tunnel. If you're on one side of the track, you could go through the tunnel to get to the infield and be in the pits, and to walk through that tunnel and hear the cars going overhead. I was done. I was like, yeah, this is cool. This is cool. And I don't care. People think people a certain kind of way and flying certain kind of flags and whatnot out here. I'm here for what's happening. And when I got a chance to go to get the job in Greensboro, North Carolina, when I left Augusta, one of the things I think that helped was that I had a knowledge of it, because it's a religion there. It's something we see, a couple of times a year in Georgia, but because you had all those tracks, and it was such a very regional sport. Now it's national. We're racing in the LA Coliseum through the streets of Chicago and all that carrying on. Yeah. But back then it was basically this regional thing. Rockingham, North Wilkesboro, Martinsville, it was a small little place, Bristol. That's what it was. So to get to North Carolina and speak the language, was a big help for me in covering that. And now North Carolina has the NBA and the NFL. But if you ask me, it's always going to be ACC basketball and NASCAR. If you want to get that whole state, and those sports may do things in Charlotte and with the NHL in Raleigh. But if you want to cover the width and breadth of that state, you talk ACC basketball and NASCAR, because that's the conversation.
Did you have at an early point in that, just beginning, once you had that trip through the tunnel experience where you go, I'm hooked on this? Hey man, where are you from? There's a certain neighborhood lingo that did you have to reveal who your driver was from then on at? Did you have a specific driver, or were you driver independent and neutral? And because of your profession, you got to cover all of them, so you didn't have a favorite?
Yeah, not really. Now in Atlanta, everybody came to Chase Elliott, Bill Elliott, because they're Georgia, right? And growing up in Birmingham, I would keep up with what the Allisons were doing. Bobby and Donnie, obviously Donnie's son Davey. So you followed that if you had drivers from that area. But going to North Carolina, you were just talking about whoever was hot. and knowing certain drivers that live close to where they're all basically in Charlotte now. But in those years, you had some that lived out around Greensboro. Welcome was where the Earnhardt, the Childress racing shops were. And on Monday, after a race ended, you would go to the racing shop and the driver would be there.
Yeah.
You know, and he was there just to talk to if there were any newspaper people that couldn't make it to the race, wherever they were. They wanted to go and interview. He'd be there. I saw that change during the time I was there. NASCAR got so big, all races were televised live. The Nashville network came on, you know, and so races that weren't on ESPN at the time with Dr. Jerry Punch, you know, were on the Nashville network. So it became this thing, and it just took off. Guys started making incredible money. And on Mondays, instead of being at that race shop, they had a ribbon cutting for an AutoZone or something, you know, a new the tire place is opening, and they want them to show up for that. It exploded. It just really totally exploded. And some drivers who had been these big regional heroes, you know, in the days of your Richard Petty, became guys like Dale Earnhardt, who was like larger than life type figures to people. So yeah, and then you got this influx of guys that came from other parts of the country, and people kind of sneered at your Jeff Gordons and your people like that, you know,
Tony Stewart.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
You know, these guys came from other places, and the thing, it wasn't that, because short track racing around different communities is like minor league baseball. You know, you go to see it because somebody driving in this little bull ring is going to catch the attention of somebody, and they're going to end up in a car. Used to be. But once these guys start coming from other places, you didn't see that much that happening that much anymore. You know, there's still a few, but that kind of changed the game too. But it took it national. And they did something you never thought you would see.
Yep.
Stock cars racing at Indianapolis.
Yep. Detroit,
oh my goodness.
Los Angeles, Ontario Motor Speedway. Come on.
Right. Well, now they're at where are they at down in California? They're what's the name of the place where they're racing?
Ontario.
Not Ontario.
Yeah.
No, not Ontario.
Yeah.
I'm beginning the name of it. I'm getting
that place. Yeah.
Place. but you know, that's kind of what happened. You got drivers from other parts of the Rusty Wallace, and they're from St. Louis. You know, now you got a race in St. Louis. You know, so it changed a lot and made it more national. And so, to the chagrin of some people, they tried to go back with some things. North Wilkesboro has had the All-Star race. But to me, when I watched that race, I said, okay, I see why they left. You know, the cars just line up nose to tail and go around. I mean, there's no passing and whatnot. I'm like, that's why they don't race there anymore, you know. So you see some of that. So they're trying to walk the balance. They're going to have the All-Star race. The bash is going to be at Bowman Gray Stadium, which is this year. But they played in LA Coliseum the last 3 years, where they had rain this year. That they kind of messed things up. And plus, they got to get out of here anyway. They want to put the real track back in LA Coliseum for the Olympics in 4 years. So let's see how they work to do that, right?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. They'll get done, but it'll be some pain and agony with that.
It will be.
Yeah. Real quick, Sam, if you don't mind, you mentioned the explosion of sports in NASCAR. You also got to be a part of what I would consider to be the explosion in the tennis world. From wooden rackets and Rod Laver, there's some guys that we're going to talk about that played like that, but the sport there has grown. Talk a little bit about your passion. I know Vincent has a couple questions regarding your tennis passion. How did that begin?
You know, just something that I enjoyed playing, you know, and you get a chance to play, and you cover it, and people give you chances to get to know the players, and if you're not careful, you end up on the court with them. And that's been kind of dangerous. Even in Augusta, they would have like a satellite tournament that would come through every year. They play out in this Westlake community. They had this kid that was coming in. They said, we want you to play a few points of a little doubles match, you and the TV guy from the other station. And we're going to give you this 16-year-old kid who's going out on the pro tour, and he's going to be your doubles partner. And it was Jim Courier.
Oh,
and he looked the same as he did when he was adult. I mean, he's
with,
16 years old
with
with
the
the
golf
base,
cap? Yeah,
with the cap. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
And just could smack the you know what out of the ball, man. And I'm on the side of. I said, I'm glad I'm on the side with this guy because he knows what he's doing, right? But that was neat to get to do that. I've dodged tennis serves from both Andy Roddick and John Isner, which is an experience with both of them. Both of them are life changing experiences when you stand there and those people hit a serve at you. Especially Isner, like it comes off the top of the Western and bounces.
Yeah, really.
Um, so it has allowed me to go some places. And there's a program that I hosted called Match Point that Jeff Batten was producing here in Atlanta, and they needed a host, and they were airing it on Channel 11 at the time, and people that in Miami hosting that, so that allowed me some access as well. So, and so it's been fun to do. I still enjoy to do it. We're glad we had our tournament here in town. We lost it this year. I don't know what we do as far as getting another one back in Atlanta. I thought it was unique to have a tennis tournament in a retail residential area in town. They made it work. The players loved it. It was something different for them. Because you come in to play in basically a tennis village for a week. You walk to practice, you walk to the court to play your match. If you bring your family, you got a movie theater, you got, entertainment, a Publix, a grocery store, whatever, restaurants. And people who come to the matches get to meet the players, get to talk with them. And so it was so different from most tournament venues. So I hope that we're able to get that to return to town. This is a great tennis town, as everybody knows. People, if you move to an Atlanta, you don't have a friend, get a tennis racket. You'll get them, and it doesn't matter what part of town you're in. You know what I mean? Well, now the pickleball people are trying to commandeer you to play that loud, noisy, obnoxious game. But
You heard it here first, and you didn't hear it here first. I mean,
the
the Hatfields, the McCoys, the snowboarders, and the skiers, and the pickleballers and the tennis players. They are the bitter rivals, aren't they?
Oh my goodness. But to their credit, you got a lot of places. And with pickleball, I keep telling the tennis people, to their chagrin, once it becomes a varsity sport in high school and they offer some college scholarship dollars for it, that's to me, that's the next thing. If colleges will have teams and offer scholarship dollars, parents will jump on it. It's just like girls flag football right now. People, these girls just playing. Oh, Ryan Hart's got a team. Oh, this college has a team. And you got some dollars for school. Okay, baby. You know what I mean? That's the right.
You better
Money
go
talks.
run. Go
right.
run.
You know what I mean? And now with them being a part of the Olympics, the upcoming Olympics in LA, which I think is remarkable. We never thought we would see a version of American football played in the Olympics. And I thoroughly expect one or two NFL guys to be on teams. Why? Because of what the NBA brand has done for the Olympics and what the Olympics gives with having the NBA brand. And you think they don't want the NFL brand involved with the Olympics? Obviously. I don't know who they are. I don't know if they're guys that are playing now or what. But in 4 years, you're gonna see several guys, NFL teams getting a chance to, or maybe guys who recently, are done and want to get a chance to do it. And we never thought we'd see it.
I know you being a huge tennis fan, and I heard that you really love the game. So I'm gonna ask you this question from a historical standpoint. What did it mean to you on July 5th, 1975, seeing Arthur Ashe win the Wimbledon? And
Everything.
Come back some years later when Yannick Noah won the French Open in 1983.
Yeah, Ashe meant everything to me as someone who started playing during that time. And never got a chance to meet him. I was at a tournament. He was Davis Cup captain, and the team played at the Omni. Mm-hmm. And I had a chance to go to watch. And this was a team that had McEnroe and Connors on it. And then, you've heard or probably read stories about it. it was a difficult time. There was a little power struggle to get them guys all on the same page with Arthur Ashe, because he was like no nonsense. You know what I mean? And Connors had been seen as being this selfish kind of guy, because he had his own little tour away from the regular tour and played these little feature matches, a lot of money and whatnot, because he had a manager, and I think it was Bill Reardon was his name, who was kind of P.T. Barnum with him. Although Connors was good. Connors, he backed it all up. But he kind of rubbed some of the folks with the regular tour folks the wrong way. And we all know McEnroe, how he could, go off on a tangent and do his kind of stuff. He still get money for saying I could not believe, right? I guess he's got that phrase coined or whatever, patented or whatever, because you could not be serious. He's still getting paid to say that. I can't believe that all these years later. But yeah, when I think of Arthur Ashe, I think about that. And if you look at him and you just see a tennis player, then you're not seeing half of what was going on with him. I love talking with Ambassador Andrew Young about him. Ambassador Young was a dear friend of his, and he preached both the man's wedding and his funeral. Mm-hmm. And so, to talk with him about him, and he traveled extensively, internationally. Just the mother thing he did, served his country in the military, and then played and still was outspoken about South Africa and some injustices, and people would kind of say, well, what you angry about, man? We let you in, you know what I mean? You in here? Why are you so angry, Arthur? What's wrong with you? And he would say, hey, oh, good. I'm in, but I'm in a position to speak on some people who are voiceless, to speak with some people who are not being heard. And I think that's the simple thing, with him. So, yeah, very, very, very special to me. And when you think about Yannick Noah, if it weren't for Arthur, would we even know who Yannick Noah is or was? He found him down in Cameroon playing tennis practically barefoot. And, they were calling in France. He called the people in France, say, get this kid some shoes, and the rest, we know how that all went. So he's very much responsible, for him. The disappointing thing has been, all these years later, there still hadn't been a Black American player, male player, to achieve some of the things that he did. And I think that's the thing. The years, right after he retired and right after his death, that was a lot of pressure. I mean, I know some guys who came during that time, and everybody wanted them to be the next Arthur Ashe, and the pressure broke them. I mean, broke them, emotionally. And it's a lot. It was a lot to carry. It was a lot to carry around, and maybe we've gotten far enough away from it now that the next wave of guys will come through and they don't have to carry that burden. Just go out and play tennis. But if people wanted so quickly to anoint the next Black player to be the next Arthur Ashe, and that's a heavy load, man. That's a heavy load.
Mr. Harper.
Sam, stay on that tennis note for just a second, because
he's UCLA guy too.
What?
Arthur Ashe, yeah, UCLA.
I know. Right? Yeah. I'll say the early 70s, when Laver was getting old, and you mentioned McEnroe, you mentioned Jimmy Connors with their Wilson and their Donway rackets, these tiny little things that today anyone, and then there's some kid named Bjorn Borg, who didn't say a whole heck of a lot, but that headband, and he had that look, and his hair was just right, and the girls just loved him. You had Ely Nastasi. And the reason I bring him up is because I'm watching with my dad, and Nastasi doesn't like a call, and he flips the bird on television. And my dad nearly covered my eyes. He acted like I wasn't supposed to see that. You know what I mean? But they're characters. Yeah. I still think you mentioned Johnny Mack and his one of his great lines. There was an official, the one in the tower, who was bald, and he made a bad call. That's out, and McEnroe slams his racket on the ground, and you're crazy, and if that ball was in, you've got hair on your head. And I still to this day laugh at his ability to say stuff that nobody else would ever dare say, because Margaret Court was Yvonne Goolagong. They were polite. They were gracious. They were all white at Wimbledon, and they never said anything to anybody. But those were some crazy times in tennis, weren't they?
But you know what? And the thing about McEnroe is he could do that. He could go off the rails, and then bring it back in and
And
beat you,
when
right?
he beat you
And
handily, yeah, get you
that
out of
was the
your
thing.
game.
You think a guy like now, you like a Nick Kyrgios, and I don't know if he's going to be able to get healthy enough to come back and play for us again, and that would be a shame. But he's a character, and he's just, he can be real fiery and whatnot. But and when it's done, he'll throw his game off. That was the thing about McEnroe. He could do things to get inside your head and get the crowd riled up, either for him or against him, whatever. He just, he didn't mind getting that going, but he found a way to use it. You know, he made the most out of it. It brought out the best in his game. So that was the thing about that guy. He could say some things, and people, oh, here he is being outrageous. Well, at the end, you get the trophy and the check, right? So,
Yeah, yeah. And the
yeah,
girl, get the girl at
yeah,
the end too, whatever it was.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, absolutely.
just recently, I saw Andre Agassi. He was going against Boris Becker all the time, and he didn't reveal it while they were playing. But Becker would stick his tongue out just a little bit. He'd curl his tongue and he'd stick it out when he was ready to serve. And he'd stick his tongue out, and when he would want to go to your deuce side forehand, he would move his tongue over to the corner of his mouth. And then when he would go to your backhand, he would go straight down the middle. Just a goofy little thing that Andre told him about 20 years later after he'd learned to beat it. And Boris goes, I had no idea. So these little things that happen within matches that people, because they're so close to one another.
Yeah.
Is tennis? We've talked about tennis for a while. So let's get back to something a little bit more important, and that is your role in television. What advice would you give to somebody who says, man, I wish I were in the right place at the right time, like Sam Crenshaw's been? How do you explain some of the advancements that you've made over the years and your ability to be in NASCAR, in tennis, at Falcon events, at NBA games and WNBA games? You're all over the place. What's your tip to somebody who's just trying to get into the broadcast world?
I am. Wow. I've always told people, if it's something you see in broadcast, do your best to get around it. Do your best to get around it. Let people know that you have an interest in it, but be busy at the same time. And you can do that now a little more than it was when I was coming along. You weren't able to produce your own, show. If you couldn't, you had to somebody had to allow you into a building, into a station, and allow you an opportunity to touch the equipment necessary in order to do this and learn it. And now you don't. You just need to get around whatever it is what I tell people who want to get into it now. Learn people who are around it and be around. That's what a lot that happened. For me, actually, I'm working in Augusta, and there's two things. Chris Fowler was doing a show called High School Sports America. Before he became Chris Fowler, he was doing a high school show, ESPN, and there was a show called Black College Sports Today that was on it. So I would hear from them for me to do a high school story with some kid in the Augusta area that was a hot shot player. I would do something and send it up to the air on the show. Black College Sports Today, if something was happening with Payne College, they were playing the basketball team was pretty good during the time that I was living and working in Augusta. I'd send them a story on that, not knowing that I would get to work in Greensboro, North Carolina, and my television station was a few blocks away from where the company that produced the Black College Sports Today show. Gus Johnson, who's now people know, on in the voice of March Madness and now for Fox Sports, was a previous host of Black College Sports Today. He was a Howard guy. And Darren Horton succeeded him, and Darren got a job in Cincinnati that people said, you think your folks at your station wouldn't mind? Since we know you and you've been around this, you know about this, if you could host the show. And so but for 5 and a half of the 7 years, I was working in Greensboro, I hosted Black College Sports Today, the show that was on ESPN on Thursday afternoons. You had to time it right. But during those times in the 90s, I got it. Right now, there's a special on Netflix about Steve McNair came along. And BET had stopped broadcasting their games every week. The BET, during from 80, when they came on the air, to 90, showed a Black College football game every Saturday. They had stopped doing it. They had cut back to like about 4 a year. So not a lot of Steve McNair's games were televised. ESPN2 was new. And so they would rearrange their schedule, and occasionally would get one of his games on. Our show was the place that people watched to see Steve McNair. And to me, that was the coolest thing. Each week, you had to time it right on Thursday afternoon, but we had a reporter down in Jackson that always went down to Lorman and turned stories, little music videos showing Steve McNair just making guys look silly out on the field and whatnot. And as part of it, being around it, I've been around this program and done stuff with this program. When I got to North Carolina, I would go by and just visit the office and how y'all doing and whatnot. And so when the person departed, and they knew I had a passion for it, and I was going to do my best to work to make it a good product. And so I got a chance to be the host of it, and be the host of it during the pass of the last really megastar player to come through HBCUs. I mean, Travis Hunter had a chance to be that if Deion had stayed at Jackson State.
Yeah.
But Steve McNair remains the last megastar. I mean, to make the cover of Sports Illustrated, to come out of an HBCU, and I take a lot of pride in the fact that I was working this, and by doing this program, right? And I got to go to real work here, y'all. Y'all hold me over. Y'all don't get me in trouble over on Charlottesville Road here. But being there, we would go on location from time to time for the Black College Sports Today show. Go to Bayou Classic down in New Orleans. And I get my work schedule so I could fly down and whatnot. We go down. There's a game coming up. Tennessee State and Florida A&M. Now, for years, they played this game here in Atlanta. This was during a break. Somebody was mad at the 100 Black Men. They played this game in Orlando, not Tampa. They played in Orlando. We go down there they said, well, we're going to go down there. We're going to do our wraps, the ins and outs and whatnot. We're going to do everything from the game. I said, well, fine. I said, well, since ESPN is televising the game and our show as on ESPN, do they have anybody to be the sideline reporter? And once again, being around something and asking the question, and they said, your host wants to do that? Okay, you can do it, but it is a unbudgeted position.
That means
I have, that means I'm doing a freebie, right?
Right.
I had a choice. I could say, you know what? I'm a professional, man. I'm the weekend sports anchor in a top 50 market. I ain't doing nothing for free. I could have done that.
Or
I didn't. I said, you know what? You have a headset and a microphone, I'll be there. Nothing else. I'm going to prove to myself what I can do. I'm going to prove to them what I can do. I'm going to get some tape for my resume reel.
Yep.
I'm winning. Game starts fine. I'm on a game call with the late Tom Mees and Mike Mayock. They're the play-by-play color team for this. I'm on the sidelines. They send it down to me. I do a little pre-game snap on this series, what's been done. Florida A&M won the 1AA championship, but they lost one game that season. That one loss was to Tennessee State. Back upstairs to you. Game starts. We're going to send it down to you for a famous player, NFL player, an Olympic champion. I interview Bob Hayes.
Oh,
Bob
wow.
Hayes at the game, whatnot. You Florida A&M guy, right? Do this fine. We're in Florida, and as you have in Florida from time, it gets hot, it's humid, and these clouds come in and it's circle, and all of a sudden it got kind of gray on the horizon, and we're like, uh-oh. And it comes in, and man, it started raining sideways. I mean, just crazy rain. And I'm down there, I'm interviewing people that would talk to me. I got a metal microphone in my hand.
You're gonna get electrocuted.
Lightning's cracking, and I'm doing this for free. I'm doing this for Harper.
How much money are you making, Sam? How much
doing
money
this for free. This
a whole lot of nothing.
Nothing. And And so everybody, I talked to the officials, I talked to the 2 head coaches. They sent the teams to the locker room, and I'm interviewing people that they couldn't see me on. Whoever would talk to me, they send the teams back out onto the field, and before halftime, the rain comes back. It's lightning again. They
There's more.
They pull the teams off the field. The Florida A&M band didn't care. They went out there in the rain and played and danced and everything out there. And they all were in the infirmary Monday, I'm sure. But I'll go back. I come back. I ruined a new pair of shoes, and I'm not getting paid for this. But I get a call.
Who saw it, Sam?
Mo Davenport.
Oh, goodness.
Who was a coordinator with ESPN. He said, you did a good job down there. We want you to see if you can get off on this Saturday. It's coming up, and it was about a month later. He says, we're going to broadcast this game from Grambling, and we think Eddie Robinson's going to get his 400th win this game. Because things were tailing off for Coach Rob. He didn't have the vitality to go and recruit, and all of his top assistants. He had an assistant that was really good. The other schools were plucking them away. And so he wasn't that Eddie Robinson and Graham, but they were playing Mississippi Valley. And as long as Jerry Rice didn't come back, they figured they could beat them dudes, right? And so they had him down there at Graham. They said, well, you can get down here. We want you to work sidelines for this. And we're gonna fly you in. You want to rent a car. We're going to show the hotel, and we're going to pay you, And so out of dodging rain and almost getting shocked down in Florida, held a microphone in the storm. And that's what I tell, young folk. Yeah, everybody wants to get paid. Everyone wants to get paid. But sometimes. Yeah. And it was an experience of a lifetime, man, to fly down there. And I fly into Shreveport. I get my rental car. I drive up to Grambling. And what Coach Eddie Robinson said was never been truer. You got to be looking for Grambling to find Grambling. You do not go to Grambling by accident. You do not. I get off the freeway and I turn and I see an armadillo walking down the sidewalk. I almost wrecked my car. I'd never seen this thing as if it's on National Geographic or something. Here was walking down a road, man.
And he wasn't going to move for you either.
He got a shell. He got a shell.
You're in his turf. Yeah.
Armadillo, man, on my way to Grambling. And it was cool, that game. A lot of his players came back. Obviously, Doug Williams was there. Willie Davis was there. Everson Walls was there. Interviewed his wife. And at the end of the game, I'm standing there on the field, and his grandson has this picture that he's never given to me of me interviewing his grandfather after the game. And he gets a phone call from the president. Oh. And I said, you know what? This I would have done for free.
Yeah.
But I ain't giving ESPN their money back.
No,
you know. But that's my thing. I tell any young person, let people know you want to do, and then get around it. Just being a part of the Black College Sports Today program allowed me to go and work that game for free. But after that, and Mo Davenport called me a number of times after that. I worked ACC games. I worked bowl games for ESPN too. So I was just thankful for what I did, but it started by one that I, did for free.
Well, you mentioned something earlier too, Sam. When you were a kid, you had, I guess it was a cassette player, with probably that little shoulder strap and little microphone, and you listened to yourself. Man, that didn't sound good. That sounded really good. I like the way that one do. I'm going to need to do more of that. Today, I'll turn my phone on, right? You can get an app on your phone that will allow you to do that for free or for next to nothing, and just go be at a game, whatever, and then send it to somebody, and be brave enough to introduce yourself to the people that are putting this thing together, but be humble enough to, when they don't ask for your idea, don't give them one. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You got to learn when to get, hey, we should have a sideline reporter. There's a right time and a wrong time to ask for that, isn't there?
Yeah, very much, and like I said, it was a non-budgeted position. I said, okay, I get it. But you have a headset.
None your business how much I made, right? It was a none your job, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You got the headset, the microphone there. What else was I going to do? I was going to, I stand around the sidelines or something. I got to interview Bob Hayes. Hey, man, that's.
You get to talk to the bullet, man. That was pretty cool. Love that. Well, Sam, I know you got other things that you need to do. It's been such a pleasure for us to have you on. Vincent, final thoughts.
Thank you, Mr. Crenshaw. I'll be listening to you every Sunday.
Well, I appreciate it. Well, thanks so much.
High school football information. Thank you for coming on today for 100 yards of football. We love you and we appreciate you.
Well, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. I really do. Thank you all.
Yeah. If we have you on again, Sam, which we'd love to do, we got to be more respectful of your time. I think, for us to hear all these great stories about tennis, about NASCAR, high school, of course, and college football, the hits just keep on coming, don't they? There's always something that we can talk about.
Yeah, people say, well, what are you doing in here? Well, I showed up and they didn't lock the gate, so that's where I end up. So hopefully they don't start locking the gate. As long as they leave the gate open, we get in. We get more stories.
Unbelievable. Well, it's been our pleasure, and we want to say thank you to Sam Crenshaw, a literal legend here in the city of Atlanta. Has been here for such a long time, whether it be TV, radio, whatever the sport is. Sam has covered it one way, shape, or form, and we want to thank him for being a guest on our show here today on 100 Yards of Football. Thank you very much, Sam Crenshaw.
Thank you all so much for having me, Harper. Look forward to seeing you Saturday, man.